Anyway, I just wanted to let you know there is a little frisson or flicker of light at the end of the life building tunnel. So I'm open to the idea of exploring it regularly.
Well, I don't think anybody could ask any more. And it's not a requirement of being my podcast partner.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I thought I was going to get the sack at one point, so I didn't.
No, you said last week, I'm so nervous about this. I said there's absolutely no need to be nervous. It's not a requirement. It's just, I feel we've got the weighting wrong of the podcast. We named it Your Business in Your Life, and we focused on business.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business in Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Well, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nicola. What is your main focus for today?
Well, I haven't got one, as you can see. I often don't fill that in, but it is a nice question. I like it a lot. And I love we're talking, of course, about the Momentum plugin for Chrome, which does give you a rather splendid picture every day, except for today. I'm not very keen on today's picture. Interestingly enough, because it's got lots of yellow flowers in it. And funnily enough, those yellow flowers are a similar colour to the ones I planted in my garden accidentally at the weekend. I'm not keen.
I dislike yellow flowers so much I accidentally planted them in my own garden.
Well, it's an interesting thing, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about it in my Word of the Week section. But I decided I needed to plant some flowers, and I've got I like to stick to a very strict colour scheme, as you can imagine. So if it's going to be pinky, purpley, white, or it can be orange, orange and all that sort of stuff. But I got locked in my house for 6 hours on Saturday. I planned to go to B&Q with Nelson. He was going to do the heavy lifting and the planting. And I woke up to the house full of builders and sister and brother-in-law, or future brother-in-law. And then they all departed, including Sarah going off to dog sit dastardly the terrier. I suddenly realised they'd opened all the windows downstairs and painted all the windowsills. So I couldn't actually close any of the windows for 6 hours. So that put paid to my B&Q trip. So when I went round to the Co-op on Sunday night to get my dinner, I noticed they had some plants outside, bedding plants. And they were rather nice. They were marigolds, and I do quite like the orangey, deep orange of a marigold, especially the ones with the darker bits in. I purchased 3 punnets of 3. No, it's a bit more than that. I can't remember the maths on it. But anyway, it filled my little bed nicely. But generally speaking, I'm not a fan of yellow flowers.
So that's a long story about why we don't like the picture on Momentum Chrome this morning.
Exactly. What's your week been about then?
Well, this is my second 8 a.m. start, 2 days running. Yesterday at 8 a.m. and today at 8 a.m. Today's my normal fortnightly group for my own gang, but yesterday we were doing one of our summit interviews, and I couldn't sleep the night before because, firstly, I was aware that we'd no idea who that chap was because we were introduced to him by another person, and secondly, I was aware that English was his second language, so I was slightly anxious about that. So I don't know what on earth I've been doing. As I said on Facebook, I'm going to fire the woman that organises my diary, but two 8 a.m. starts. Actually, an 8 a.m. start is not too bad. It's that it requires you to get up at 7. And frankly, that's a couple of hours early for me. But on the other thing that's much more exciting is I've been making a plan this week in view of my impending travels and intention to get a life, mentioned to you in last week's podcast. I've drawn up a little school timetable using colours and Excel spreadsheet to try and hack down the number of hours I work in the day. Because let's imagine I'm in Normandy or St Martin. What would the point of being there if I worked 8 hours a day and I wouldn't be able to see it? And what's the point?
Yeah.
So I've managed to get it down to 25 hours a week in 1 week and 20 hours a week in the other week, because I've got this schedule with Small Business Big Magic where it's 3 calls 1 week to another. So I can get it down to The lowest I can get is 20 hours a week, which is sort of.
And are they
3 hours
together, those hours?
What do you mean?
Well, you know.
No, I can't do that because I don't want to do that. My calls are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. My coaching is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I can't change that. That's the nature of my work. But I can get it down to often a 3-hour day. So half a day. I can get it down to half a day, and that was my plan.
And is that the first day?
No, because of my time zone differences.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily choose it to be the first half of the day, following on from the remark I just made about not particularly wanting to get out of bed very early in the morning. It wouldn't necessarily be my choice to do my client work first and then have me second. It would be to have me first and do my client work second. But where I am will dictate that. So when I'm in France, I'm an hour ahead, and when I'm in St. Martin, I'm 4 or 5 hours behind. So it will be my morning in St. Martin, and for my UK clients it'll be afternoons. And that's why I always put my coaching in the afternoons, because I knew eventually I would be 4 or 5 hours behind. But anyway, the point of this story is I'm beginning to make plans to work only 20 to 25 hours a week, and I've written here in capital letters, Get a Life, Judith, it's called.
This is going to be interesting for everyone because, I'll save my bit.
And it involves a spreadsheet. Well, the best bit about that, of course, is it involves a spreadsheet, so I'm just sticking that in filing for now, but there we go. I have a lovely coloured spreadsheet. I can make it work in 20 to 25 hours a week.
Wow. See, yes. See, I would not enjoy my day knowing I had to come back and work. But I suppose if you're working in the evening, no, it would hang over me all day. I'd have to do it in the morning.
I'm not working in the evening particularly, but I would say this, that today my first call was 8 o'clock in the morning, and we are closing with a 9 o'clock at night with Neil Asher in Sydney, Australia. That is a 13-hour day. I will not be doing that when I'm in foreign parts.
No, definitely not. No, I'm not good in the evenings at all, so I'm not looking forward to that one either. But I know he'll be worth it. That's the thing. He'll be.
I agree. He will be worth it.
Yeah. So I've been working with my new client this week. It's been quite a lot of setting up behind the scenes. I don't think clients appreciate that because she's been getting very twitchy that she hasn't seen any changes externally. But we've had to, completely overhaul her website. We've had to set her up from scratch with Infusionsoft. We've had to set her up from scratch with lead pages. There's quite a lot of integration and stuff going on behind the scenes. But we've got to the point now where she has a Facebook page, and there is stuff on it, so one can start. I've started on the Facebook likes campaign. She's had 52 likes overnight, and that's her biggest issue has been around creating content. She used to be a television star in India. And she's very, very good looking, and she will be an absolute star on Facebook Live, once she gets the hang of it. But she's feeling, as we all do, quite hesitant about it initially. So I was trying to encourage her to do audio because we've got to get her creating content somehow. Because what clients don't appreciate, I don't think, is that you cannot build a following in this digital day and age without being willing to share something of yourself online. Whether that's audio, as we're doing here, which is probably the easiest medium, or video, which is going absolutely bonkers at the moment. I mean, Dan Norris was saying that Facebook lives his podcast when he's recording a podcast. He has the guests often in the studio, and he Facebook live streams it. And one of his recently got 7,000 views, and lots and lots and lots of comments, which really is just astonishing. Although he does have a big following, but the point is that she could build a following very easily if she was willing to use Facebook Live. So we're encouraging her to do that. So yesterday we had lots of conversations about how to create a content schedule, and I nearly sent her to one of Dan's posts because he lays it out very well, but I realised that would overwhelm her. So we just literally had a few chats about, if you're going to create a bit of content every day for 5 days, one day could be about, something you've learned in your life and the lesson, the circumstances, and then the lesson. One thing could be, an inspirational quote talking about what it means to you and all that stuff. And so, she sent me a lovely email this morning, and I sent her a few examples of people who've made it through video. Obviously, Gary, the chap we interviewed yesterday, Car Sundance, and Denise Duffield-Thomas, she's done very well with video because she's so natural at it. So I sent her a few examples, and she sent me a lovely email this morning saying her mind is beginning to open up a bit with possibilities for how she could do this. So that was rather nice. And along with the 52 likes, she's got an audience now, you see. It's not just speaking into a void, which I think is quite terrifying and dispiriting at the beginning, but once you know there's 52 people at least who may see you if you go live on Facebook Live, then you've sort of got something to do it for, haven't you? People to do it for. So that's been quite good this week. I've quite enjoyed that, apart from your marigold planting. What's fueled your fire this week then?
Well, with one notable exception that I don't want to name, how much people are opening up to us and telling us their deeply personal stories on our summit interviews.
Yeah, I've got that down exactly. That is the thing that's fueled my fire this week. It's very moving and very inspirational, hasn't it? And
yeah,
I love the fact that so many people are surprising us. I mean, people we thought we knew.
Well, I know, and that's the beauty of it. Interestingly, we both agreed yesterday that in future, the interviews have got to be with people that we either know or we think we know. And we think we know all of these people, but they're still surprising us. That's the gorgeousness of it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I must be one of Chris Barrow's main stalkers, but he was telling us things that I had no idea about. And he was...
Well, of course, what you're reminding me of, people don't sit still, do they? There they are, they're getting on with their lives and developing their thinking and changing as they age and so forth. We think we know people. We don't know people.
Yeah, and I love the way that the whole concept of the summit is developing. It's, at first it was just about interviewing people who travel a lot and how do they cope and, what are the good bits and the bad bits. And now it's becoming, how do you build a business that's more than yourself, or do you, like in Chris's case, he totally surprised us by saying that he'd re-examined everything and come right back to the beginning again, which was really stripping away, wasn't it? That question about, I can't remember how you exactly phrased it. It was something along the lines of, are you building it from the ground upwards or are you chipping away at it
Yes, and he gave me exactly the opposite answer of what I expected, because he's a planner. I said, are you planning it, or to get it right? Are you just chipping away at what's wrong? And I thought he was going to say I'm planning it, because we know he goes into the bunker with his Sasco wall plan. No, he said, I'm chipping away at what's wrong. He was funny and self-knowing, and I thought he trusted us. We're managing to create, by accident or design, a space of trust where people are just sharing deeply moving personal stuff, which I think is going to make our summit just awesome.
Yeah, I do too. And I love, one of the things I'm getting a lot of pleasure out of is introducing you to the people that I really like and respect. And yeah, it's really cool. Very cool. Loving it. And okay, so that's what's fueled off.
We're both fueled by the same thing. That's the first time that's happened in 79 episodes.
Now, this is interesting, just to let you know. Dan Norris has put a thing on today. We're going to talk a bit more about that in a minute. But he says he only considers interview requests now from people who've got more than 50 episodes on their podcast.
Oh.
We are in that, not that we do interviews, but we are in now that elite band. About 4 or 5 podcasts ago, Judith and I came up with a brilliant idea. As is our way, we put it into action straight away. We wanted to create a virtual summit called Beyond the Laptop Lifestyle. We'll interview people who actually make lots of money and then have a great lifestyle and travel the world, or interesting people who have a great passion-driven lifestyle and who then make enough money on the side to fund that lifestyle. We're aiming for a real mix of real people we actually know, not going for the usual names, but a carefully chosen and hand-picked group of people who we know are doing unique work while living an enviable lifestyle and having fun. Just come over to ownitthesummit.com to find out more and to register for free for the live event on the 18th and 19th of June. We will be making recordings and you will be able to get your hands on them as part of your upgraded summit experience. Just visit ownitthesummit.com. What's our client challenge of the week then?
It's a client opportunity of the week.
Oh yes, it is.
It's a two-parter. It's a two-parter because you're going to start by telling us a story. Hopefully you can remember it because it's quite a long time ago now. The client opportunity of the week is the value of R&D teams, and I want you to start by telling us about the FI 101, and how you wrote it, and how you had people snapping at your heels and giving you feedback. Can you remember that?
Of course I can.
Because after you've done that, I got the 2016 version, which I've seen on Facebook, and I'm so impressed by. I'm going to read it to you after you've told me the old-fashioned way you did it, and then I'm going to show you the new way people are doing it now, and you are going to be beyond excited.
Okay. All right. Well, this sounds fun. I remember it as if it was yesterday. I had a website called NicolaCairncross.com, and it was 1998 or 1999. I can't remember exactly which year. And I'd been online for about 4 or 5 years with various little websites that I'd built myself. But I got involved in what I now know is called distance learning through signing up to become a coach with Coach University. And I don't know if you remember, but it was supposed to be distance and virtual learning. But when you first signed up, you paid your money and a massive great box arrived full of all sorts of complicated bits of paper and folders and things. Anyway, I didn't open that for several weeks, but I did get stuck into the online webinars. It was all run by Thomas Leonard, who founded coaching, and he was a real pioneer on internet marketing. He really was, looking back on it, astonishingly good at it. And I was also being mentored by Guy Levine, who we both know and we talk about regularly. And he was a youngster who got involved in all of this. And Chris Barrow was actually also forging the way, because I think he got involved in distance learning through being a member of Dan Kennedy's Silver Circle or Inner Circle or something, whatever it was. It might have been the other chap as well, the one I always get muddled up with. But anyway, so all these people around me were doing amazing, groundbreaking things. And one of the things they said to me was, you've got to get an opt-in box on your website, and then you've got to have a series of follow-up autoresponders. And of course, I didn't realise how new all this was. So I just said, all right, then what do I use then? And someone said one shopping cart. So I signed up for one shopping cart and started to create a series of autoresponders. There was only one offer on the site. I can't remember what it was now. It might have been sign up for my newsletter. Oh, I think the first thing I did before I got the autoresponder going was that opt-in box took people into a Yahoo group, I think it was back in those days, because Google hadn't been invented. And see, the days before Google, can you imagine it? So yes, they put their name in, and they immediately went into a group where we had discussions about the stuff I sent out every week, about the stuff I'd learned, the stuff I'd learned about building a business, the stuff I'd learned about wealth creation, the stuff I'd learned about property investing or stock market trading or whatever, because those were all success thinking. Those were my interests. So we had a good old lively group thing going on. And then I found out about one shopping cart, so I changed the box on the site to opt in for this. And then I realised that I remember the day I had the revelation that I needed to do a big, long autoresponder follow-up at 101 days. And I remember Thomas Leonard, it was definitely something Thomas Leonard did or something Thomas Leonard said. I remember it so clearly. I remember where I was sitting and everything. So I started thinking, okay, let's break this down a bit. Because this is one of the things actually I want to talk about later, is I'm not actually very good at systematic planning. But I thought if I could turn it into 10 things people need to know to become more successful and wealthy, and then if I could just think of 10 points I wanted to cover in that, and I don't know what they all are yet, but as long as I've got the first 3 or so mapped out, then I'll be all right. And then I think if one website they need to visit for each of those things, ideally with an affiliate link, and perhaps 1 or 2 books they ought to read around each of those 10 things. So I sort of had it really roughly planned out. Anyway, I started to write it and I got to day 15, thought, oh my God, I'm never going to finish this. So then I thought, well, okay, how can I force myself to finish it? So I went and announced it in my group and also to my mailing list that existed then, and said, I'm going to be doing this, put your name and email in here and you'll get 101. I don't even know if I told them. Yes, it was called the Financial Intelligence 101, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
FI 101. And anyway, they did sign up. And that's the thing that drove me, even though I was running the hotel at the time. I had my own coaching business, one-to-one coaching business. And in the middle of it, day 70 something, we upped sticks and went to live in Greece for a month and then went to Spain to see if we wanted to live in Spain. So we were there for 3 months. And every single day I had to keep ahead, and I remember one point the people who'd signed up for it got ahead of me. I was actually about 10 days behind. I think it must have been when I was in Greece and the internet connection was so tragic. But then I remember I caught up, got ahead of them again, and then I went and had to reset each person manually. And looking back on it, I now know how I could have reset them in one hit. I remember that was the most painful bit about it. But anyway, so for years, I was famous for this. I mean, I used to meet people at conferences and all sorts of places, and they'd say, "Oh, I'm in your 101 days." And I say, "Yeah, there's no escape once you get into that." But because each one, was quite short and sweet, and then it had a little suggested action. I think I had a little action at the end. I tried to think of something they could do to, based around that topic. But it was just the most brilliant marketing tool. And I used to tell little stories, and people got to know me, and it just worked so well.
The angle I'm interested in is the R&D team, because there was a bunch going through it with you who were giving, at the very first time, giving you feedback and keeping you on track to creating the content. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And tell me about the value of them. Did you change anything based on their feedback, or what?
Getting feedback is a little bit like running affiliates, in the same way as that you expect you're going to get a lot more than you do. You have 2 or 3 diehard fans who comment on absolutely everything. It's an 80-20 rule, isn't it? You get 2 or 3 out of 100. You're going to get 2, 3, perhaps 5 who comment on everything. You're going to have another 10 perhaps who comment occasionally, and the rest of the people are deathly silent. So it wasn't as incredibly helpful as it could have been if a lot more people had participated. But I did get enough feedback from it to know when I was making mistakes or going wrong.
But also it was accountability, wasn't it? Because they were snapping at your heels, wanting to produce days, 81 to 101.
I never, ever want to let people down. I would let myself down 100 times easier than letting other people down. So that's why I get Phoebe to come to the gym with me, because I just simply won't go if she's not there. So knowing those things about yourself, as we were talking about Chris, he knows himself very well. I created that, and it made I couldn't give up on that 101 days. And I remember the day I wrote the last one, and I went down to the pool where Irving and the kids were having a lovely time in the swimming pool in Spain, and I said, "I think I've just written a book."
Well, I was going to say, and then it turned into the Money Gym book, didn't it?
Yeah, it did turn into the Money Gym book. Cool, that took a bit of editing, I can tell you. I didn't do it, luckily. The lovely team at Lean Marketing Press did it, Joe and Debbie. But yeah, I still am the proudest of that book that I've ever been in my life, because, who'd have thought I could have written a book? I wouldn't have done when I started.
So I'm thinking here about R&D teams, okay, the value of R&D teams to people. And it seems to me that in the story that you've told, the main value was the accountability of having to finish the 101 days because you said you would. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did get feedback. I mean, it's like us with our private group for this podcast.
Yeah.
It's an R&D team, isn't it? It's a feedback loop. It's a community.
Yes, it is a community, definitely. I'm going to share with you something that I saw on Facebook. You might want to open up Facebook on your computer in front of me and see if you can find somebody called Mom by Example. Mom by Example.
Yeah.
And here's what she put. I am so excited. Kathy and I have co-authored a book, and I need your help. I'm looking for 100 moms of young children, newborn to 10 to 12-ish, to be on the book's launch team. Now pay attention to this, Nicola, because I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
I will send you a free copy of the book entitled There's an Easier Way, and add you to a secret Facebook page where you will be entered to win over $200 worth of gifts and prizes and have fun interacting with other moms. All I will ask you to do is read the book, tell friends about it on social media, and rate it on Amazon. Did I mention that I'm excited? Just PM me on this page or somebody. So what she's done is she's put together a secret Facebook group. She wants 100 of her ideal customers, her R&D team. She's going to send them all a free copy of the book and enter them into a prize draw as an incentive. She wants them to play nicely with each other in the group, talking about the content of her book, read the book, review it on Amazon, and tell friends about it on social media. Now, what a brilliant idea that is.
And how beautifully it's phrased.
Well, it's just a brilliant idea. And of course, if you think about it, you could apply it to anything you wanted to launch.
That's very true. And in fact, Dan Norris does do that. He gets groups going for everything he does.
So you have a free group. You have a free group. I mean, and it works particularly well with books.
Yes, it does. It's a lovely. And the thing about books is, it's really, if you give people a hard copy, they feel like they get something of value. You could even do it earlier than that. I mean, I think Robert Kiyosaki did it. He blogged his book. He wrote it on a blog.
Yeah.
And it got feedback on the blog. But you could have a private group where people could discuss it.
But actually, she's not asking for feedback on the book because she's finished the book. What she wants is a community of raving fans to be her social media ambassador army.
Yeah, very nice. Would you be able to put what you've just read out?
Yes.
I was skimming through looking for it, but if you could put that in a group, that would be in our group. That would be awesome.
Yeah, when the minute I saw it, I put it in both of my groups, going, oh my god, look at this, because it's just a genius way to get people to spread the word about anything for you by giving them something for free. They're already interested in it, so you're calling for volunteers, you're not conscripting people.
Yeah.
Would you like to get a free book and help me launch my book?
Yeah.
How many? She's got 3,000 people liking her page, so it won't be difficult to get 100 moms, will it?
No. And moms are traditionally quite keen on the whole thing about being a mum.
And being in a group.
You know, we know.
And I mean, this is a little similar to the thunderclap thing, because 100 moms will have a reach of. They'll have a reach of what? I don't know. Let's say they've got an average of 500 friends. What's 100 times 500? A lot, isn't it? 50,000. You know, you've got a reach from this. It's brilliant.
And the other brilliant thing, of course, is that the one biggest thing about getting a good, position on Amazon, which gets you seen by more people, is the number of reviews.
Well, the interesting thing about that is it's not a small favour you're asking here to read a book.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. That can be 8 hours work. It's not like click on a thunderclap and do it in 2 seconds. Reading a book could take a mum a weekend or a week.
Yeah, absolutely, because it keeps getting interrupted.
Yeah, so all I will ask you to do is read the book, tell friends about it on social media and rate it on Amazon. I just think that's such a genius idea. And she's going to put you in a lovely community and enter you in a prize draw worth $200. I mean, what's not to love about that?
I know. It's lovely. It's very elegant and simple. And
I think it could work for online courses. What else could it work for?
Well, all sorts of things. Yeah, anything you want to build a community and get feedback on. And
yeah, so it's a way to. We need to remember it every time we start something. You, me, and the listeners. Every time we start something or launch something, you can get a sort of unpaid pre-publicity team working for you here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you know what they do in London? They do pre-screenings of films, and then you hear those people in adverts on the radio, and they use it. They put on a screening the week before the launch. And they get, 150 film goers in there, so they can get sound bites and reviews ahead of the launch.
Yeah. Dan, when he was writing Content Machine, actually had he recruited 100, I think it was 100 people, to actually read it as he was writing it, and he made it available on a Google Doc where we could actually highlight and comment bits and say whether we found them confusing or whether we liked them or whether we loved that quote. It was really pretty good.
How many people in the group, Nicola?
I think there must have been 100, because he'd need at least 100, because 80% of them are not going to do anything.
So what we want to think about here is we want to remember this, all of us, anybody listening, creators of anything. How can you? This is the 2016 way of creating an R&D team. You open up a secret Facebook group and you invite people to be your raving fans, and you give them free stuff and you enter them in a prize and you leverage their social media reach. It's just so delicious.
It is. I love it a lot. It's very simple. It's very elegant, and it's not overwhelming for most people, which a lot of marketing can be, and that's just very good. I like it a lot.
Well, that's it. So never forget, I think, is what I'm saying, that you can harness to your effort an R&D team who will help you cross the finishing line in any respect you want. Now, one of my clients was a little bit resistant to the idea. So it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's genius.
Yeah, and the other thing that's come out of this conversation is reminding me how useful it is when you've got a big task ahead of you to chunk it down, and don't think that you have to do it all at once. You can do it in segments, like I did with my book. Not that I knew it as a book at the time, but how-to books. They're very good chunked down like that, because it makes it less overwhelming.
Well, I tell you what, you then taught Marion how to create an online program called Flying Without Wings. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember it, yeah.
And she did it exactly like you do, with this team of people gagging for the next chapter. She would say, if she was here with us now, she would never have finished it had it not been for the fact that people were snapping at her heels. Now, when I talk to clients about this, I always explain about the way you did it and the way Marion did it and the snapping at the heels. I could never do it like that. I would die if I thought people were snapping at my heels. But it is, I'd rather create it and then offer it. But the brilliant thing about the R&D teams and the snapping at the heels is you know whether there's any appetite for it.
Yeah, well, that's right. And getting that, especially for authors, because they do tend to labour away for 4 years, or so, creating something, and they have no idea if there's any interest. Coming back to Kiyosaki, that's what he was doing. He was, and a lot of people do develop. Dan Norris again, he developed his books out of the blog posts that went viral. So he'd explore his ideas, and in fact he's just done. Well, I want to share it later on of what he's just done, but it's a really nice way of testing lots of different ideas and see which ones fly. I'm sure a lot of self-help kind of business authors do it like this now.
I've only ever written a book via a blog. All my books are a collection of blog posts.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it too.
Mm.
Yeah, very good. What's your word of the week then?
Well, it's happy, because I was struck by how often Chris Barrow mentioned it. I even took him up on the point, do men measure their lives by happiness and look for happiness? And he was just so happy to use the word happy a lot. And I was struck by that. You don't hear men. I read a survey once, actually, that women expect to be happy. Men don't really expect to be happy, oddly.
Oh, okay. So men are not brought up to expect.
Well, they look for fulfillment, or they might use another word for it, but Barrow used it a lot as a measurement of where he is, and I just thought he used it sufficiently for it to be noticeable.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and does that have a personal sort of impact? I mean, are you sort of thinking about?
No, not really. No, not really. I just, I was, my word of the week is happy because Chris Barrow used it a lot. That's all. No, I mean, I always measure my life in happiness, but given that he's sometimes quite dark, and he did admit that, it was just fascinating to hear him, how important happiness has become to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, brace yourself, because mine is life. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I've had, you've been talking a lot in the last couple of episodes about, we say it's your business and your life. And I've obviously felt very resistant to talking about it, about even a thought of having a life, really, again now. And so I was talking to Sarah about it, and I realised that she said, you've got to be honest with Judith about this, and you've got to say, how you're feeling. Because I try to be relentlessly positive, upbeat, and optimistic on this podcast. And obviously, difficult events have happened recently. But so I was feeling a resistance to talking about it. I was feeling in no kind of thought that I might ever be able to put one together again. And now I have a bit of acceptance that I need to get one, because you're going to go out and do it, and I'm going to do it as well. I was thinking the other day, I can't even do Facebook Live because I don't go anywhere unless I'm on my travels, my business travels. That was the nearest, I suppose, I got, because I was actually quite happy with my life, poodling around Shoreham and hanging out with the teens and having dinner with Steve and watching TV and going to films and things. That was my life that I liked, and the only other bits were when I went away, and I quite liked that. But now Phoebe's off to Bali soon, and Steve's dead, and Shoreham's feeling a little bit small, and not many, and then I was sort of, I've got to plan the rest of my life. I know I have. I'm not quite ready to do it yet, but I was feeling a little bit of excitement about the opportunities and the I don't know where to start, Judith, actually. I just don't know where to start. So I was thinking perhaps in some part of this, if you want to talk about life more, A, I've got to have permission to be honest, and B, we need to make a section for it because there isn't one at the moment.
No, I don't think we need to rush into this. In fact, it was only me listening last night to the recording of this week's episode, which we recorded last week, that I reminded myself, it's all about getting a life. Hello, I haven't even got anything in this week's, because we're so habitually business focused in this. I'd already prepared today's without actually even having a mention about having a life in it, funnily enough. And if I were in your situation, I wouldn't be planning a life, because as a recently bereaved person, you know, you shouldn't be planning anything for a bit. You should just be rolling with it. And just because I'm going to go off and do this doesn't mean you've got to. We agreed last week that, you know, it's business and life. It doesn't mean we've both got to rush out and have a life. Now, going back to the I don't go anywhere and the Facebook Live stuff, I think we're looking at star supporters for outside with their live video cams, and that isn't either you or me. When I start going to Normandy and St Martin, I'm not going to be doing video live, but I am making space that when I'm there I can actually have a life. And, you know, what will constitute a life for me is sitting in the pool with a book. I won't be videoing that either, Nicola, but you know, my life is just about working less. I love my work. You love your work. But these people on our summit are inspiring us that, you know, they're deliberately designed a life. And it was when they realized that working very long hours wasn't doing it for them. I mean, one of the reasons people leave their cubicle is not to work long hours, isn't it? And one of the early benefits of leaving the cubicle, one of the things I loved when I was first self-employed in 1977 was you see daylight. You know, in a job, you don't even see daylight in the Northern Hemisphere. You leave home in the dark, you come home in the dark. And I was nipping about in the 70s, you know, fetching lever arch files from my clients in a mini metro and driving over London bridges and thinking, oh, this is great, I'm out in the daytime. And, you know, life's pleasures can be simple. They don't need to be big or dramatic. So when you talked about your old life, which has been changed through no choice of your own, you know, Shoreham, that sounded lovely to me. Okay, it's changed and we don't know what your next chapter is going to be. And I wouldn't be rushing into creating that. And I know you were apprehensive. You said that last week. And just because I think we should attempt to get your business and your life in here doesn't mean there's a requirement for either of us to be accelerating at that or having to define that in a particular way. I tell you what's going to be interesting, that's it. While you and I work out over the next 79 episodes how we want to shape that respectively.
Yeah, I did have one little frisson of excitement during the week when I came across that year of living digitally. You know, that thing where
Yes.
15 countries or something, they take care of everything for you and you're with 75 other digital nomads. I thought, oh, that looks quite exciting.
Well, interestingly, we'd already talked about that in the group when you'd been away dealing with matters which we won't go into. We talked about it because Irene wants that and Lisa wants that. I'd rather gouge my eyes out than do that. But I shared both your links in there because we shared links in our Own It the Podcast Facebook group of communities like that, because, you know, Irene, remember saying about a month ago that her partner wasn't ready for that or didn't want to do that and she didn't want to travel alone. So we've been gathering links like that, and Veronica Pullen shared that one. And yes, for certain types, both Lisa and Irene both went, yeah, that's what we want. I would rather die than do that. But that's a whole point, you see. Barrow, what was Barrow saying? Oh, yes, you know, lovely time on the island. I went, oh, God, I'd pay not to do that. That, you know, vive la différence, isn't it? But yeah, there are all sorts of exciting adventures. I think it's a year long, that one, isn't it? How many days is it?
Yeah, a year long.
Yeah, I think you'd tire of it. One would tire of it before the end, moving in a gaggle of annoying people.
Only if they were annoying. What if they were nice?
Well, have you ever watched those programmes? There was one recently about old age pensioners trying to live in India.
Oh, yes, I love that, yeah.
Well, you know, there was a group of 6 or 8 of them, wasn't there? And there was a couple of annoying ones in there, you know, and you'd have to give a wide berth to the annoying ones. As I always say to you, there's always one.
Yeah. See, I think the reason I was drawn to it is because I have been alone. I have travelled alone. I actually love travelling alone. I don't mind going to conferences and things on my own. I know there's going to be people there when I get there. And I did go and live in Greece for, I don't know, I can't remember how long it was now, a month and a half, 2 months, on my own in 2010. And I didn't mind it, but it's not a choice I would make voluntarily.
No, you're not ideally suited to it. No, I don't think that's a good idea for you.
Yeah, so that's another thing of my life, is I'm going to have to think about that side of things as well. But obviously it's way too soon for that. But yeah, so that's another part of it.
Other things and other people will show up in your life. There's a void, okay? And the universe abhors a void, and you will get lots of opportunities of different sorts coming in over the coming months and years. So don't worry about that unduly. But
if I go out,
yes, I can see you travelling the world in a group of nomads, actually.
Yes, because at the moment, the only time I ever see another living soul is when I go around the co-op and have a chat with the boy behind the counter about my marigolds.
You know what? You'd be quite a leading light in a group of nomads because you're so knowledgeable about online working online.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting idea. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know there is a little frisson or flicker of light at the end of the life building tunnel. So I'm open to the idea of exploring it regularly.
Well, I don't think anybody could ask any more. And it's not a requirement of being my podcast partner.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I thought I was going to get the sack at one point, so I didn't.
No, you said last week, I'm so nervous about this. I said there's absolutely no need to be nervous. It's not a requirement. It's just, I feel we've got the weighting wrong of the podcast. We named it Your Business in Your Life, and we focused on business.
Yeah.
Beginning and end.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no nothing's going to change around here, Nicola, but it's good for us both to think. It's good of us both to think about this, and the summit speakers are making us think about this.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. And also, the other thing that's making me think about it is all my buddies are in Las Vegas right now, having that week-long mastermind where they're having relentless fun day after day. And I know I couldn't have coped with that. I certainly wouldn't have wanted to be there this time, but I definitely am feeling like I'm missing out a bit. So there you go. Project updates.
Yes, well, I'll go first with my classic weekly audit. We've got 18 of our 20 speakers booked, 2 vacancies at the moment. We've done 7 interviews, and we've got 4 more this week. So by close of business Friday, we will have done 11, which is over halfway. The Thunderclap update is 220,000 social reach, still only 64 supporters. We really need another, how many is that? 36 supporters there.
Yes, we do.
We're going to work on that. Yeah, we have a marketing plan now, which is quite exciting, and you adapted it over the weekend behind my back. So on Monday I did what I thought. On Monday I did what I thought we'd agreed, and on Tuesday I did what your plan said. And we've made, now this is exciting, our first summit sale, ka-ching, from beloved Irene, who will be cruising on the weekend. And the very fact that she's cruising on the weekend and contemplating becoming a digital nomad means she will be an interviewee on next year's summit, if we have one.
Oh, listen to you, planning next year already.
Well, I'm not really, because let's see how we feel at the end of this one. I'm sure it'll be like having a baby. And if I wasn't moving house, I'd be fine. But thank you, Irene, much appreciated. And when I realised that you were going to be away cruising, I was going to say this to you even before you spent $197. But you know, you'll need to be one of our speakers next year.
Absolutely. And Irene, actually, talking about the 80-20 rule, Irene is always an early adopter. She's in the top 3%, I would say, on early adopters and first purchasers. And Sue O'Kell used to do that as well, didn't she? She was always one of the ones to sign up first for things. Lovely when you know you've got a core cadre of people who like what you do. It's very nice.
Irene tried to sponsor us with Patreon, but gave up because it was too small a sum of money to do the bookkeeping, if you remember. Irene is a kind person who is trying to encourage us with amounts of money, and it's much appreciated, Irene. Thanks very much, darling.
It does. Yeah, so that's good. And it also proved that all the setup had worked rather well, so that's good.
Yes, it did. Yes, which is useful. Now, what do you have to contribute on the project updates section?
Well, I've updated the page show, and I've also swapped it from the launch. So if people go to ownitthesummit.com, I thought now it's time to move off from the launch page. I was getting everyone to opt in first, but that was working better in terms of getting opt-ins, but it wasn't working better in terms of getting people signing up for the actual summit. So I've swapped that now to the full page. And the thing that I've done is gone through and put all some of the latest confirmed guests on, which means I've had to move some of our other guests who've had quite a bit of exposure on the page already down to the bottom. But the problem is I'm having a little techie challenge, because what I did was I set up the more info pages for those guests further down. And now I can't work out how to make a live link to those pages. The first 2 did it fine, but the second 2, 3 haven't. So I'm struggling around a little bit with the tech. So I'll get on to lead pages support today, because they're very responsive. Okay. The other thing, I am struggling with that social media marketing plan we pulled up. I got a bit over ambitious, as you can see, because I wanted to combine it with my knowledge that if you do post more on social media, you build more followers more quickly, particularly Instagram. I was very keen to experiment with, And so I set it up thinking I could do a lot more aggressive amounts of posting on Twitter and Instagram particularly. But then I couldn't make Hootsuite work with Instagram because it doesn't auto post. It just reminds you need to post on Instagram, which is more helpful than not. But because I'm trying to fit it in around everything else, as are you, and I haven't got a social media manager now, I'm a bit stumped. So I didn't actually succeed in posting anything yesterday, which I feel very bad about. So I'm struggling between the fact that I've overcomplicated it for myself, and I'm trying to use a tool that I'm not very familiar with, and I'm trying to do it in between things. So I might have to pare my plan back down to more like yours.
Well, it was quite simple. I went to the page of the Google Doc and I wrote down Tuesday summit sharing, and I wrote down the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things I had to do. And I did them. And 5 of them were quick. Talk about one of the guests on Twitter, talk about the blog competition on my Facebook page, talk about Thunderclap on my Facebook profile, share one of the guest blog posts in the Own It the Facebook group, share about one of the other guests in the Own It the Facebook page, and then the last one was I had to write a blog post. So I actually had to go over to my own. That was quite time consuming. I had to go over to my own blog and write a post about it. But I got them, I suppose I did them in an hour, and most days it would probably take me about half an hour. And I think what's probably better is 2 half an hours, one earlier in the day, one later in the day, something like that.
Yeah.
We had an important learning this week, which was we did a speaker, and I think it'll be obvious when people listen to the summit recordings. We did a speaker that we didn't know, and we were introduced to by another speaker, and it didn't go well. So we've made a rule now that when we interview people in future, it'll have to be other people we know or people we think we know, because we were completely unable to achieve rapport, and therefore it's probably a poor interview. But it's only 1 out of 20, I think.
I don't think anyone will notice, to be honest, because their enthusiasm and energy.
I still think there's value in the interview. I agree.
Absolutely.
However, you and I found it like walking on hot coals.
Yeah, it was a bit painful for.
And that didn't make good interviewers out of either of us.
I could tell because you weren't asking any questions.
Well, I didn't realise until I turned on Skype afterwards that I got an instruction from you that said, "Can you take the lead on this?" So I got the instruction that you wanted me to lead it after the event.
Well, only because I thought that you'd come up with more. Well,
I tell you why. Because every time I asked a question, due to the poor audio quality, there was a long gap. And we are both inclined to talk in a long gap, whereas I don't know whether the guest was thinking, or anyway, we don't think it's a good idea to invite guests you don't know, however fascinating they are.
I used to struggle with this when I did the Business Success Factory podcast. Most of the guests I didn't know. I started off with people I did know from the cruise, and that was great. Those are definitely better interviews. And then I started moving on to, I just had Sarah contact everyone who was on the top 100 business book list, top 100 business podcast list. And in some ways it was a delicious surprise because all I knew about them was their bio that they'd supplied, and if I'd gone and looked at their website in advance. And it was astonishing, how 50-50, I would say. You got a rapport with some people that you didn't expect to. You got one guy who was absolutely charming. He ran a construction company in America somewhere, and we hit it off like a house on fire. And ditto with the bloke who'd invented some special drill. But you could never tell. And then people would come on, and you would think, "Oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this next hour." And luckily, I had a series of questions to ask, and they usually the first 20 minutes was them talking about themselves. So, but then some people they'd be finished with that first 20 minutes in 5 minutes, and I think, "Oh my God, this is going to be a short one." And I really had to drag interesting answers out of them, which I honed my interview skills no end, but really made it very painful. And it got to the point where I just simply couldn't carry on with it because of the random nature of whether I was going to like the guest or not.
It reminds me a bit of Parkinson, where he had some tragic moments with, was it Meg Ryan, who just said yes and no in answer to all of the questions. Which has never been on the programme. Yeah. And yesterday we did cut it short a bit, whereas some of these people have been so interesting. You could go on, it's like eating Nutella off a spoon. You could go on forever. It's delicious.
So Chris Barrow, no longer Marmite, but Nutella off a spoon.
Yes, we'll have to tell him that.
We will. Yeah. So okay. So anything else? I'm just thinking. No, we're really into marketing now, aren't we? And trying to get to that 100 supporters on Thunderclap. That's our biggest.
Yeah, we've got to focus on that a bit, haven't we?
Yeah.
I had to leave the conversation with Barrow when you were explaining to him what a Thunderclap was. Did you get any commitment out of him to Thunderclap it?
I think he will if we send him the link. So
well, he's had the link. They all get the link in the letter. But however, one of our things on the Trello board, which you don't seem to be keeping up with, by the way, is that there's a date when we'll send them, and that's all we'll send them. Each of the speakers a link to the Thunderclap thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, this is an interesting one. I mean, this is the whole thing about the planning thing. I'm using, all my team are using Trello, and Sarah's now hooked it up so that it goes into Slack. So every time a job's added for me on Trello and my name is mentioned, it goes into my Slack channel, or it goes into the client's Slack channel, which is doing a great job of that. But I'm still better with pen and paper when I'm planning. I really struggle with all these online project management tools. I struggle with the fact that I have to write down what I'm going to do before I've done it, and then write down what I've done after I've done it. I don't like that at all. It feels like
I find it's quite useful to review it 2 or 3 times a week to see. And I write down things on there so you know what I'm doing. And actually, all I get back from you is absolutely dead air at the moment, which is why after this call I'm going to need to follow up with a couple of issues with you. But I quite like it. I find it annoying that I have to go to a third-party place. So I've got to go to Trello, or I've got to go to a Google Doc. I find that quite annoying and counterintuitive at the moment. But I find it quite useful to record. When I'm working in partnership with you, I find it quite useful to record on there what I'm doing, and also on the card marked Nicola to do, to tell you what you need to do, even though you're not doing any of it.
Oh, I better go and have a look at it after I've sent them now.
I find it quite useful. And I move the cards around as well. I move the cards around. So
I like moving the cards from one place to another. There, yeah. Week 1 to week 2, for example. It should be going from week 2 to done, but so yeah. I mean that's it. It is an interesting, because I used to really love using Basecamp. I love using Basecamp and things like that to issue instructions to people, but I'm not so keen on using it myself. I think
you're not so keen on following.
Thus it was ever, Judith. I mean, that's why I only ever lasted 18 months in anyone's job.
I know.
I'd set up the systems and then not follow them myself. It's one of my big failings. I know that. But if I live in hope of finding a project management system that I can actually follow.
I don't think the systems are the problem. Because it couldn't be easier than Trello.
No, I know it couldn't. So what? Okay, so yeah.
I think a decision needs to be made that some projects are worth bending yourself to the system, and others are not interesting enough to you.
Yeah. The thing is, I love the fact that I've got a Trello app on my phone, which I never look at, and I love the possibility and looking at all Dan's stuff. It's obviously he's a meticulous planner, and I know that a good plan makes your life easier. I just don't feel able to.
Well, how about this? I don't really feel I'm using it as a planning tool. I'm recording. I'm finding it quite useful to do things like, we had a card that said guests to be invited, and then we had one that said guests invited, and then we had one that says get interviews scheduled, and then we have one that says interviews done, and then we have one that says blog post done. I like moving them along, so they were on card number 1, then they went to card number 2, card number 3, and so you can actually see progress. I find the wide horizontalness of Trello a bit annoying, because you've got there's a sort of slightly annoying slidey bar at the bottom that doesn't really work very well. But I don't use it to plan. I use it to communicate with my business partner what I've done and what I'm intending to do. So progress, I'm monitoring progress as it goes along. Project management, I suppose. It's not planning for me, it's project management, I think.
Yeah. And I am getting better at using it. I mean, Sarah's making me, because she comes and sits next to me. There is no escape. She comes down, makes a cup of tea, sits next to me, and I think, oh God, here we go. But it's good.
Well, I do have 1 or 2 polite inquiries to ask you after this call.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll look forward to that then. Right, moving on. Who or what's impressed? Obviously not me.
Well, no, not you this week, although you have featured twice in 2016. I was impressed by one of our speakers who we have already recorded, and another who we haven't recorded yet, but we plan to. One person told us this week that he makes $70,000 per webinar, and I know one of our other speakers does that as well. That in itself is an impressive thing.
It certainly is. And I was just thinking the other day how little I use my Ever webinar thing for I just don't do webinars, and I've got 2, I think, on the go on the automated thing. I've got quite a lot of things in lead pages where it's videos that I've recorded and they look like they're a product launch formula kind of thing. But yeah, webinars is woefully underused in our business.
Well, I think both of them have got large and responsive, either large and responsive communities of their own, or partnerships with people who do. So if you get the audience there and the content, the audience is gripped by the content, you're going to make money. Interestingly,
Judith, I did go and opt in for one of our guests yesterday, and I got to a place that told me the webinar was over, and I wasn't offered the opportunity to watch a replay, which I think missing a trick there.
I agree, but to compliment them, I followed them on Twitter last week, and then I tweeted. One of my job on the marketing thing yesterday was, number one, guest info on Twitter. I tweeted the best quote from his interview, and they then retweeted it to their entire community. So somebody's on top of their social media, if not on top of their webinars.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Okay, so
who or what impressed you?
Yes, Dan Norris has done a very good, if anyone is struggling to plan their social media content, because this is a topic very much on my mind, not only for me, but for my client, obviously. There's a new blog post on 7daystartup.com/content_machine. And it's Dan setting out how he manages to churn out 50 pieces of content across 7 different platforms every week. Now, obviously, we can't all aspire to those sort of numbers, but he used to just blog once a week. So he's stepped up his game by outsourcing, by planning, and he lays out in a very nice blog post that's not too overwhelming how he does it. And the other thing is, I noticed while I was there. So go and have a look at that. And he's got lots of.
Sorry, could you give us the link again so I can put it in the notes?
7-Day Startup. That's the number 7daystartup.com/content_machine. And of course, that's the name of Dan's book as well, which is very good for planning content. But while I was there, just on a shameless begging note from our listeners, I noticed that he's got a very nice blog post called /top_business_podcasts. And if anyone fancies popping over there and giving us a little mention, and lots of other people are suggesting their favourite podcasts in the comments, so that would be a lovely place to get a mention. So,
and in his 50 pieces of content piece, does he say a week? Yes. Does he measure the return on that?
He is very much of the belief that you can't really measure return on content marketing, but he is very much, having built, WP Curve and now 7-Day Startup entirely on great content, he knows that it works because he's making lots of money from it. So, and that's all he does. He doesn't do. Yeah. I did run some ads for him for a little while when he started his 7-day challenge, but he's gone back to completely content marketing now. So it works for him. But I love the fact that he what he does is in a nutshell, is he brainstorms 260 ideas. I imagine that's 5 days a week, 40 days a year or something, 40 weeks a year. And he then expands on them on Snapchats and quick Facebook Live videos just to get some, and Instagram as well allow you 60 minutes of airtime now. And then the ones that resonate with the audience, he then sends that to his content, his social media manager, content creator, and they work it up into bigger blog posts between them. And the research, the social media manager does all the research and links and all that stuff. And then he writes it and Dan approves it. So Dan is coming up with the ideas in a systematic way. Dan is market researching them by putting them out in casual, quick format. And then the ones that resonate, they turn into more detailed blog posts. Nice system, I thought. So always looking for a system, me, even if I'm not going to follow it.
Well, maybe that's the thing. It's the endless quest for nirvana.
Endless quest for efficiency. That's what it is. Brilliant. Okay, great episode. Thank you very much. Speak to you next week. Bye.
Yeah. See ya. Yeah, bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.